Recently, I traded my multi-year-old Prusa Mark 2.5S for the Ankermake M5. I've been printing with it for a while and have some thoughts. Something that I really enjoy doing is I like to trade things, be it collectibles or 3D printers, you name it. It's just fun. It's a really good way to get to try something new without having to invest more money into it. And I have been trading 3D printers with other people for quite some time. So when the opportunity came for me to get my hands on the beautiful Ankermake M5, I jumped on it. I traded my Prusa Mark 2.5S and MMU for it, which has been a workhorse for me for the last several years, which I actually got that printer trading for my old school TiVo Tornado. And that was a lot of fun. But we're not talking about those machines. We're actually looking at the Ankermake today. On paper, the Ankermake M5 is truly a sight to behold. It's kind of a spec sheet warrior. It goes big in everything from speed to weight. This machine weighs close to 30 pounds. Anker's claiming like 27 and a half pounds. And that makes it one of the heaviest 3D printers I've ever owned, which is kind of impressive given the fact that it only has a build volume of 235 by 235 on X and Y by 250 millimeters on Z. So it's a behemoth, it's heavy, it's loud, but it's still absolutely gorgeous. The prints that I've been getting off of the machine have been spectacular as well, and we're going to talk about that. But as far as the physical attributes of this machine, you have this really nice gunmetal gray, all anodized aluminum. The spool holder is beautiful metal, and there are actually three positions that you can mount the spool holder. You can mount it up top, how I have it now. You can actually rotate it 90 degrees to the printer's left side and have it mounted off at the side. And then there's also a spot lower on that side of the gantry where you can mount it off to the side as well. Based off of the amount of space that this printer already takes up, I opted to put the spool holder right up top. You also get a beautiful full color touchscreen, which we're going to roll some B-roll of interacting with because this machine is too loud to have powered on while I'm sitting here trying to talk about it. Now, unfortunately, I can't talk about setup and first use on this machine because I am not the original owner. So when I received it, it was fully assembled. So A+ for me. But you do get automatic bed leveling, and the gantry will actually automatically align on each print. So some nice touches, very reminiscent of the Prusa Mark III, which this machine is very, very heavily inspired by. What I think that Anker was attempting to do is put their own flair on an already proven winner. The Mark III has been around for quite a few years now and is one of the highest regarded 3D printers that's ever been manufactured. And obviously the i3 style has been, the idea was taken and people have just ran with it. And we've gotten machines like the Ender 3, the CR10, the BQBX, the entire lineup from Anycubic. And it's wonderful to see that, but I think that Anker is one of the very first companies that has taken the idea of an i3 style printer and really polished it. Which begs the question, who exactly is the target audience for the Ankermake M5? The M5 I'm seeing online priced anywhere between $699 to just north of $800. So it is a premium priced 3D printer, but it also boasts premium features. You get 7x7 mesh bed leveling, which it uses the nozzle probe for, a direct drive extruder, and this thing prints super fast, up to 500 millimeters a second. Now you're not always going to hit that if you're printing in fast mode, but it's nice to know that it's there. And as far as I'm concerned, as long as you're not using this printer in the same space that you're living or watching TV, it's perfectly fine. I think for a workshop printer, a basement printer, or something like that, I think it can be as loud as it wants to be. Unfortunately, in most cases, with speed comes the sacrifice of silence. It's really hard to accomplish a very quiet 3D printer and a very fast 3D printer. You can have quick and quiet, but not screaming at some of the speeds that this does. Now, I've seen Voron kits that those machines are running super quick and they're fairly quiet, but there's always going to be some mechanical noise once you start really pushing power through the stepper motors. Unfortunately, the big drawback is this machine's loudest attributes aren't always necessarily the stepper noise, but the fan noise. And it's unmistakable. When this machine is running, you know it's running. Sitting aboard the build plate on this beautiful monstrosity is a textured, flexible magnetic build plate. It's not my favorite build plate that I've ever used, but it's also far from the worst. It does have an aggressive texture, and prints seem to stick to it really well. In some cases too well. I have some evidence of filament being left behind from purge lines and things. Not the end of the world, doesn't affect performance. But one thing that I did notice while I was actually cleaning the build plate very recently was if you're cleaning the plate with isopropyl alcohol, whatever green paint they've used on this will actually come off with 99% isopropyl alcohol. Now, I haven't tested it with anything lower because I like to keep a gallon of 99% on hand for cleaning, using it on 3D printers, resin cleanup, things like that. So just be mindful when you're cleaning the build plate. You might see some of that texture paint, the green, start to come off of the build plate. Not the end of the world. It is what it is. It's kind of part of the out of bounds area on the printer anyway. But since I got it, I've been having a blast being able to print and use it. And before we dive into the prints, I do want to kind of sidestep into talking about the slicer. The slicer that Ankermake is currently using, which is also called Ankermake, I'm not quite sure why they did that. It's not good. It functions like a really old fork of Cura, and on the basic mode, you're really limited in what you can do. And even in the expert mode, there are still, it kind of feels like your hands are tied, and I don't love the UI on the printer. I've also encountered a really weird bug, and I'm curious if any of you that have an Ankermake have as well. I'm not able to change the wall or top and bottom layer count unless I slice the print and then go back in to edit it. I don't know if that's just a me thing, but I will be reporting this bug to Ankermake and trying to get some footage of it down the line. So instead, what I've been doing is I've been using Orca Slicer, the soft fever fork of the Bambu Studio Slicer, which is a fork of Prusa Slicer, and I've really been enjoying it. Prusa Slicer is my standard slicer of choice. So I picked up Bambu Studio really quickly, and I'm really enjoying the Orca Slicer for the Ankermake. There is a profile already built in there, and I've been getting really good prints with it. In fact, everything that I have laid out here has all been printed using Orca Slicer. I definitely recommend, if you have an Ankermake M5, you check out Orca Slicer because it's pretty cool. And given the fact that I have a Bambu P1P and this printer, being able to handle everything quickly and easily in one place without having to build out my own profiles is absolutely fantastic. Now, one thing that I do really like about the Ankermake software is actually using their remote monitoring. So there is a cloud system for the Ankermake printer, and what I'll do, my kind of workflow with this machine is I will grab my model from printables or somewhere, or if it's my own model, I'll get it prepped and sliced in Orca Slicer and drop it into Ankermake. At which point it does the processing, and you have the ability to have their AI features turned on. Now, I haven't really looked in a lot to what the AI features are. It's supposed to have some spaghetti detection and things like that. And from a little bit of the reading that I've done around online, there seems to be kind of a mixed match about whether or not that feature works. I haven't personally had a print fail in a catastrophic manner on this one, and didn't really want to test it because I don't want to waste the filament if I can avoid it. I have enough failures accidentally, and I didn't really want to induce one. But you do get to monitor your prints through their camera and everything. I do feel like their mobile app does seem to function a little bit better than Bambu Handy in some regards. It's kind of a same but different. Like on my Ankermake, I can pull up my camera feed from anywhere. With my Bambu printer, I have to actually be connected to the same network that the printer is on. It's not the end of the world, but it is really nice to know that if I'm out and about doing things, I can pull up the feed and see what my camera is doing. You can also pull your time lapses directly from the mobile app with the Ankermake. I can't do that with my P1P. I have to actually pull them off of the SD card. Now, I do think that the camera itself is actually a little bit of a downside. So far, all of my time lapses have worked out to be like 1 second long, and this thing has a super wide angle fisheye lens, which is kind of cool. It's a neat effect, but it's not super detailed. It's definitely better for print monitoring than trying to show off something artsy. And I'll roll right here what one of those super quick time lapses looks like. So It's functional. It's not pretty, but it does work. And they'll hang on to your videos for 15 or so days, which that's pretty good. I mean, if you don't pull it within 15 days, it's gone forever. You can download it, you can share it. And when you're actually live viewing the machine, you can start a record or take screenshots of print progress, which that's really handy to have as well. In terms of the overall print quality, that is what excited me the most. This thing absolutely screams while it's printing, and I managed to squeak out a Cali Dragon in 15 minutes, which is bar none one of the fastest that I've personally printed. And the only major issue was, even using silk filament, it just had a couple of tiny little wisps up on the horns, and that's not the end of the world. A very quick pass with a regular butane lighter, and you're off to the races with that. So I've printed a couple of fun models, like this frog is an acoustic frog that's actually doubling as an instrument. And this was printed in Polyterra PLA. I think it came out really well. I wanted to test the support removal and how the machine handled supports on a slicer profile that I didn't set up, and I think it did great. Overall, it looks good. There is a little bit of scarring in the mouth, which you're going to have that with some support removal, especially on a matte material like this Polyterra. The stick I printed on the Anycubic Cobra Go was a part of the review for that machine, and because I already had the white PLA loaded, but the frog sounds awesome. I printed the little frog for a couple of reasons. One, I thought it was really cool, and two, it was a good opportunity to test supports with this printer. And overall, I found the supports weren't overly difficult to remove. Now, this model was a little bit on the trickier side just because the supports were in the mouth and you had kind of a ceiling to work with. So be mindful of that. They weren't difficult. They weren't super easy to remove either. The quality on the frog itself, though, awesome. I actually scaled this up to 200% because based off of what I read for the description of the model, the size of the frog will kind of vary the tone that it makes. Smaller in size, higher pitch, bigger in size, deeper pitch. After printing a Cali Dragon in 15 minutes, one of the very first models that I did was actually a warbling bird whistle that you fill with water. And I did that for a couple of reasons. One was I thought it'd be really fun to make a TikTok and to test how well the print would function, and two was to give it to my grandma.
Woke up and wanted bird friends.
I don't have that here to show you because I left it with her. It was really fun when I showed her the whistle because she told me that when she was a kid, they used to get whistles like that from fairs and other events like that. So it was a lot of fun to show it off and have some fun with her, and the whistle is hers now, which makes sense because she feeds the birds and loves to spend her free time just chilling, watching them. And she actually has this app that's, she compares it to Pokemon Go, but she collects birds. That's a lot of fun. I print a lot of filament that now comes on cardboard spools, and as much as I love the spool holder on this machine, being all metal and really rigid, I noticed that there was a lot of friction from cardboard spools, and I was building up a lot of cardboard dust around the machine. So I actually printed a slip ring for the filament spools. Basically, you just take the spool holder, there's a screw that holds the post that the filament sits on the front, and you undo that screw, slip the part on, and put it back together. The goal is that it provides kind of an interface layer between the spool and the spool holder, and it's a really loose fit, so it rolls very smooth, kind of like a bearing. Now, that print did actually fail. It became detached from the build plate while it was printing. It was a tall and slender print, so if I were to do it again, I would probably throw a brim on it just to be on the safe side. I think that the ambient temperature in the shed actually dropped. It's not insulated out here, and we've had some days where it gets really hot and evenings where it gets really cold, so it could have been that. The nozzle might have caught, I'm not sure, and the AI detection didn't stop the print. It wasn't the end of the world, it's still functional, and some parts are always going to be form over function, and it does what I need it to do. As I told you in our Mother's Day special, my mom is a crazy plant lady, and she thinks that my 3D printers are her personal planter factory. So I printed her this adorable little oddish planter. I haven't given it to her yet because I wanted to show you guys just how clean it came out. Now, this part doesn't have a super high polygon count, so you can kind of see some evidence that it is 3D printed as it goes up, but it is absolutely adorable, and I'm very happy with the quality of the print. It doesn't have any drainage holes, so you'll have to be careful on kind of what plants you put in there. I don't know anything about plants, so I can't make a recommendation, but I'm a big Pokemon nerd. I had the right blue already in the machine, and I thought that that little planter was adorable. The machine handled it like a champ. It is a lot of fun to print things that are just absolutely super annoying to everybody around you. And one of the really popular models from back in the day was this Aztec death whistle. When you blow into it, it makes just a truly, truly horrible noise. And I've never actually printed one. This is the first one that I've ever done. And I find things like whistles and other noisemakers or print and place models are really good ways to check and test to see if your printer's dialed in. Now it's time to be a menace to society. The most recent thing that I printed with the Ankermake is probably one of my favorites. So I'm sure at this point, you've probably seen a print in place collapsible sword or lightsaber or something like that. And that's exactly what I have here. The body of this lightsaber was actually printed on the Bambu P1P because I wanted it and I wanted it now. But I printed the blade on the Ankermake. So this version of the model from 3D Printing World is actually designed so that way you can change out the blade and print the blade in a different color than the body. Overall, I'm really happy with the way that the blade turned out in this beautiful glitter purple from Zero. To be perfectly honest with you, these parts were not all printed at the same time. There are two ways that you can print the blade for this print and place lightsaber. You can print them all nested together, or you can print them out in segments. What happened to me is I did the initial print where I printed the entire blade at one time, and the two largest pieces, which are right back here nearest the hilt, are labeled as blade 4 and 5. Those two parts were actually fused together. What I'm mostly sure happened as I was kind of trying to free everything up is that the Z seam is actually what caused the fusion. So I tried to, at the very least, salvage one of the pieces so that way I only had to reprint one. In the end, I had to reprint both, and it took about an hour and a half extra. Overall, not too bad. I think that the blade turned out beautiful. This glitter filament absolutely hides the layer lines. They're almost invisible to look at. And when this thing is out in the sunlight, man, you feel like Mace Windu. Tally ho! As you might have noticed, we are not in the shed, and that's because I forgot to record an outro for this video. We're actually at my friend's house, and this is a sneak peek of what you're going to see next week. To kind of wrap things up, I think the Ankermake is a really impressive machine. Although it is a bit on the higher price side for a bed slinger, it's feature packed. I mean, $800 is not inexpensive for anybody. But I think that it kind of warrants the price. The full aluminum body, the beautiful design choices, the built-in camera, the networking works really well. Ankermake does need to put some work into the slicer, and I'm hoping to see more improvements with that soon. The machine is, I think it's going to be a workhorse. I'm really enjoying my time with mine, and I think it's definitely worth taking a look at if you're interested in a bed slinger and you have about $800 to spend on a 3D printer.